In this video, we're going to show you how to set up custom Word tables instead of having the wizard do all that complete creation of the Word tables for outputting the line item databases, such as for quotes, schedules, and so on. So using a custom table gives you more flexibility because you have more control over things that, say, the wizard doesn't have settings for altering how it creates its output. So we'll go into the preferences. Click the Data and Display tab, click that Line Item Quote Database button. And we're going to use a custom database that we've set up. If I go to Edit Definition, go into the categories, we have a single category for a product database. And this will be the same for any database you use, whether it's one of our pre-made ones, a sample, one you've created yourself. So we're just going to the category fields. And we've added a product code field. It's an alphanumeric. And we have line item weights. So what we're going to show in this example video is how to output two completely different tables using the same database and line items in slightly different ways. We're going to let the wizard do the output for a cost summary that's going to have fewer line items. So you can see we've marked the product code and the weights as hidden. So when the wizard does all the output, it will not show the product code, item weight, and line item weight. It's only going to show description, unit price, quantity, and the amount. But for the invoice, we actually want to show all of the fields. So we want to show the product code, description, the quantity, unit price, the total weight for that line item, and the total amount for that line item. So what we'll do is we'll set up the wizard to do the output itself for the cost summary, and then we'll set up a custom Word table so we can get the hidden fields actually output to the invoice. All right, so we'll exit out of this to the main database screen. So what we need to do is we need to have a custom Word template for the invoice in the My Templates folder. So you can see we've got our custom product database selected. And if you go to your File Explorer, go to your default install folder for the entire proposal kit. By default, that's the C drive in the proposal kit folder, then the proposal pack folder, and then the My Templates folder. So the wizard will always pull any templates you've put into the My Templates folder when it's building your document, overriding the ones in the stock library. Because we can have multiple databases in use and different projects can be attached to different databases, and that means you could have different layouts, we have to allow you to have multiple copies of the same template, say the cost summary, invoice, and so on. So what we do is we prepend the database code to the file name. So all these files in My Templates right now that say QDB and then a number and a dash in front of the template name, that differentiates what templates get used based on the database being used for the project. Okay, so the database code is set when you create a database. And when you select different databases, you can see here the codes change. So our custom database we're using for this example is QDB 14. So we need to have a QDB 14-invoice in our folder here. Now you can manually manage copying and creating templates into this folder. The wizard has features in here to do it for you, so you don't have to worry about getting the names and file names correct. So you just click this quote templates tab. And this is also how you check to see what template the wizard's going to be pulling in, if there's a custom one or not. If there's no custom templates for a particular chapter here, that means the wizard's going to pull from the stock library. And if it's going to pull from the stock library, that pretty much means it's most likely going to be doing the creation of the word templates by itself. So if you want to ensure that you have more control over it in creating your custom tables, you're going to want to create a template in this folder. So I've clicked the quote templates tab, click the quote related templates. It shows me what templates are already associated with the category or categories in the current database. So we know our category for this product database, the custom database we're using, is associated with the cost summary and the invoice. So for a custom table for either one of these, we got to get that file into the My Templates folder. How do we do that? Well, I can just select invoice. Oh, and also, if you're not sure, if you're not actually using your File Explorer to go and actually look at the folder and find matching templates by the database code, use this other button, Edit Quote Templates. And if I click that, it says there's no custom templates in this database for the My Templates folder. Okay, so we know there's nothing in the My Templates folder. We don't even have to pop open our File Explorer to look. So we see a blank screen. That means there's no custom templates. Now, I can check this box and say show everything. So it's going to show every file in the folder. And that just shows us that there's other databases, not the one we're using, that have some custom templates. Uncheck that. Okay, boom, we don't have any. So we need to get one in there. So go back, click quote related templates. I'm going to click the invoice because that's the one we're creating a custom template for. And I click the copy to my templates button. All right, now it will first pop up a screen showing you a list of all the categories in the current database. And this gives us control of, hey, what categories do I want to output into this table? So if I just use the defaults to say copy and set up template, and I'll show you that real quick, this is not what we want to do because it's just going to add a single tag. And this is how the wizard will do all the output into the invoice by itself. Okay, you see this Q-quote. So that causes the wizard to do all the table inserting by itself. And that's not what we want in this example. So I'm going to check this box. This is the important part here. Add tables with quote tags. So this just gets us a starting table inserted into this template for us to start editing. It just kind of saves us the time having to start with a blank document with no table in it and then having to figure out how to completely create it from scratch. All right. And I'm going to select everything because I do want the entire category. Now, if we have other categories in here and we want to decide some go in the invoice, some don't, then we would check the specific categories that we want. So I'm going to click copy and set up template again. And what the wizard's going to do here is because my templates files have the formatting details stripped out because that all gets added back in when these My Templates versions of files get built into your documents. So now I just clicked Open Template, and I could double click this QDB14. So you see this file just showed up. So if I double click this, that's the same as clicking that button to edit it here. Okay, so now we see the wizard has output full tables, and now we have a table that we can customize to make our custom table. So now we don't have to start from scratch and figure out how to properly construct a table and get all the tags in the right places. It's pretty much done the work for us. But you'll notice it created the table in the same way it would have created its normal output. That means the two fields that we wanted to show in the invoice that were hidden, they're kind of hidden here, so we need to add those back in. So it's possible we'll add another option soon. If you see another checkbox down here later that gives you the option to output hidden tags, well, that'll probably be something added in the future soon. We're also going to make some other customizations. So in a previous video where we showed how to turn off these major headers, say the main product category header and the summary, this is something we can do with a custom table where we want to keep the summary line, but we want to get rid of the chapter header line. Now we need to get our line item fields that we're going to add back in. So if I just go back out to definition info, so you can see our category for our products, and this product code and the total weight for the line item are something we want to add back in. So I can click this View Template Tags button, and that just brings up a screen with all the possible tags for the database that we could be adding back in. So if you look around here, you can see Q Product Cat. What's that? Q Product Cat. That's the tag to insert the category name, products. So, because every category, you can create your own labels. So when the wizard does all of its assembly, it's going to replace Q Product Cat with the word products, because that's the label of that entire category. But we're just going to get rid of this line completely, delete this row. Now we want to add in rows for a product code and the line item weight. So we're going to have to add a column here, because we'll put this in front of here, and we'll go and add a weight column over here. And I think we'll want to clean up the summary a little bit. So we can just shift that over. We're not going to really make too many changes here. One thing we can do is, since the invoice has a lot more info going on up here, maybe we want to shorten up this table. So we can use one line item row for all of this stuff if we want. So I'm going to just make some changes here to this table to make a custom one. So another thing we can do, instead of like manually retyping or moving things around, we can always insert using the screen. So if you only have one other Word document open other than the wizard, which is the template you're working on, you can't have extra documents open because the wizard needs to kind of identify which one you're going to be editing, and it does that by just looking at what other one document's open, not the wizard. So we have our cursor point set. So instead of typing or moving QPC sales tax, I can just highlight the line here, insert tag, and total amount, insert. All right, I'll clean this up a little bit and remove all these older rows, delete cells, delete entire row, boom. Move this left, there. So now we've tightened this up into a single table row. Now let's go add in our missing columns here. Oh, and a couple other things. So when I mentioned all the design elements are removed, when this gets rebuilt into a full document, that's by the wizard when you create your projects, that's when it's going to re-add the logo wording for, say, invoice with the logo. It'll add the sidebars, the watermark graphics, page numbering, footers, and so on. and it will also apply the color scheme for the design. How the wizard figures out what colors to replace in tables is it uses 3 specific colors. 0, 0, 0, these are RGB colors, 0, 0, 0, 150, 150, 150, and 210, 210, 210. So you see black, light gray, dark gray. So your color scheme will get reapplied to these cells. So if you want the wizard to correctly apply the cell table colors, keep these colors. If you make custom color changes to these cells, the wizard will keep whatever custom cell colors, table colors you've applied. You'll also note we use word styles. There's other videos on word styles, but this is how you can make font changes across your entire document consistently. And we have some specific word styles set aside for use in tables to make sure that the colors contrast work. So that's why we have white text against the dark 2 colors and black text against the light color, because your color scheme should be set up so that if you're not using black, you should be using a dark color. If you're not using this darker gray, it should be a darker shade of some other color, and that your light gray here should just be a light color of something else, so that the contrasting light or dark text stands out. So if you're using different colors than white and black for your fonts, you just want to make sure you use a light or a dark shade. And that's all set up through the word style screens. There's other videos and manual chapters on that. But I can just show you real quick. Yeah, if I highlight description, I go over to styles, you'll see all these custom word styles that are created for every document you've got in your system. So Proposal Kit Table Text 1. And then we have Proposal Kit Table Text 2. And this one is just the normal body text. All right, so the white colors are going to be using a word style table text 1 or table text 2. The only difference is the color will be the same. The difference is the size of the font. So the larger font's usually going to be used for the headers, labels, and then the smaller font will be used for the body. All right, so that covers the color, the design elements for colors and fonts. So I'm going to go and split the cells. Now, this is all Microsoft Word I'm using. These are not features of the wizard. All this table editing I'm doing is just straight Microsoft Word. So I can only split one cell at a time. And this is another caveat for customizing Word tables for the wizard. So using Word, I can create all sorts of splits between cells and things. So if the same number of fields are always used, that's fine. What you cannot do is, say, split a cell into 2 rows. So what if I were to do something like this? Now, Microsoft Word will allow you to do this manually through their normal interface, and that's a legitimate Word table, but Microsoft Word's API that the wizard uses for modifying tables cannot process a table like this where you have different number of cell rows across, say, another full row. So if you try to do something like this, the wizard's going to generate errors that it cannot process the table, and that is a limitation of Microsoft Word itself for when it's doing automated processing and traversing of tables. All right, so we'll just undo this, so just don't do that. All right, so I've got a New column set up here for our product code. And it's okay if our tags here wrap down, because when these tags get replaced, the data will get replaced with the length of the actual data. Okay. Okay, so I've kind of got the table set up, I've got the widths set up, and now I just need to get the tags for these two. So what is our tag for the product code? So I just go back over here to my list of tags for the fields, and here's my product code tag. Okay, I've got my cursor in the field, highlight that, click the insert button, and it puts the tag in the document for me. I click my cursor over onto the weight. See the cursor's flashing right there. And there's two weight columns. One is the weight per item. We want the calculated weight. If I'm not sure which one, I can always go back into the database definition and double check which one is the calculation. But I kind of know already this LI weight is the calculated amount, which is the line item weight times the quantity. Insert that. So now we have a completely custom table that has all the fields we want. Now you'll notice here when I was doing this insert, it had QS tags, but when I dropped them in, it had Q tags. That actually will cause some errors in the wizard because you have to have every field using a QS tag or every field using a Q tag. Okay, what's the difference in Q and S? Now this has been covered in other videos, but that is how you determine if the wizard's going to create one line item row and put every line item row into a separate word table row, or you're going to have one word table row that all of the line item data gets dropped into. Now, if any of your fields are going to have data long enough to wrap down to the next line, we want to have one table row per line item. All right, so we use the QS tags for that. Now, if I had checked this box before I clicked the insert here, I probably should just click this show QS line. So now, all these have QS. But I can just use the keyboard and clean this up real quick. QS and QS. All right, so now every line item code starts with QS. So what we're going to show in this example also is, what if we want to have the cost summary have all the data dropped into one table row because there are fewer columns and that we have more room for the description. But in the invoice, because we've added some extra fields, there's a higher chance our description could wrap. So we want to ensure that every line item in the invoice goes into its own word table row. And this will all get shown when we start building actual documents. Okay, so I think we have a pretty good custom table layout here. We've got everything we want in it. We've got everything lined up the right way. We've got the colors set so they're replaceable with the design theme. Everything looks good. So we're going to save this. Now if I go back into this quote templates button, edit quote templates, Now you see our custom invoice. Now we know that, oh, there's a custom QDB14 invoice.docx in the My Templates folder. That's the template that's going to get used. So I can just click the edit button, or I can use the File Explorer. And that just brings up this template we've been editing. Okay, now we're set to actually start building and testing some documents. But first, let's double check our settings. Okay, table rows, multi-table rows. Because we're going to be setting up the cost summary to have one table row for all line items, and we've set up a custom invoice that'll ensure that it gets split out into multiple table rows already, we're going to uncheck that. And I think we'll keep everything else the same. Alrighty. So let's go build and test a document. Alright, I have a new project. It doesn't have a database associated with it. I'm going to associate the custom product database. And let's add some line items. Added a few line items. We have our product codes, descriptions, weights, price, quantity. It's calculated out the total line item weights and the amounts. Let's get our globals set. So we'll have a tax rate of 7%, $50 for shipping, and give them a $20 discount. Now we can do a test and preview, and let's see what these look like. So you can see it, that Q-quote that you just saw flip up there. That means the wizard's doing all the table creation for the cost summary, and you just see it pop up in the invoice here. So now it's pulled in our custom table to drop in the data into the tags. And we'll just look at the difference. So it's the same line item database, same definition, the same set of actual line item data, and the default settings for the cost summary. You can see we're turning off the multi-table rows. Now we have one word table row that all the line items get dropped into. Now we could use the wizard's setting options for changing up the output a little bit. We might just be able to give us more room in the description by making the price column a little shorter if we were using long descriptions. But this does work by itself. Now over on the invoice, we can see we also have the code field and the complete weight field. Now if we're using long descriptions, if the description's wrapped, everything stays in line. So that's one of the reasons for maybe splitting up using multi-table rows or not. It really comes down to, do you need to shorten up tables to get more space on the page, and does your data wrap or not? And that's going to determine whether you really should turn off the multi-table option. We probably would make one more little change here. So I'll go and make a couple little tweaks. I'm going to go and change the price width here, and I'm going to go and add in, so we forgot to add in the total of the weight. And I'm going to show how to do that inline in the body of the document. And I'm going to save my project without building the document, so I don't want to kick off the full build over here. So this is an example of how you would usually go about making custom table changes. So you would set up your table, make your initial changes, you'd go do a preview with some live data, decide what you want to change, and then you just iteratively go back and forth until you get your table set up just right. So this is actually showing you what you would normally do in practice. So I'm going to go back into Edit Definition. Go into our categories, we got our products, go into the category fields. Now for price, let's see. I'm going to edit the field, and this is only going to affect the cost summary where the wizard is doing all the output. This will have no effect on the price column in the custom table we created because we custom set the width in an actual table. 50. So widths are in points, and in Microsoft Office, 72 points is 1 inch of your width in your document. So 50, that's going to be maybe 3/4 of an inch or so. Okay. Now the other change we wanted to make was to actually put in the full calculated item weight for the entire order, which we were missing in the invoice. So I'll go to Quote Templates, edit Quote Templates, edit our invoice, view template tags. So what we were missing, tax rate, shipping, oh, here we go, total weight. So total weight that's a global level field, and it's the sum of all the weights for all the line items. So where would we want to put in this weight? So we want to kind of show how to put tags outside of a table, because you don't have to put all your tags inside of tables all the time. Only the line item tags like these have to go in tables. You cannot put the category level line item tags in the body of a document, because what the wizard does in line items, it actually has to expand the word table as it's adding rows, or it has to go to the end of the column to insert the next piece of data for the next line item. And it just doesn't know what to do with a line item field in the body of a document. So we can put global fields. So I'm just going to put the total weight up here. So that I go over this tab. I could just type this with the keyboard, or whatever tag I have highlighted, wherever my cursor is going to insert it. Okay, so now we have a global level line item tag in the body of the document. Back into our project. And we'll do another test and preview. So now we have our cost summary. You see our price is now set to the width of 50. Gives us more room over the description. And our total weight is right there. Now, 20.8 watts. Is this pounds, ounces, kilograms? So this is where you might want to use formatting fields. Or we can just type in the letters LBS, KGS, whatever, after the tag in the template. So you got multiple options on how to get your raw data formatted differently. But that is how you use custom templates to have more control over your output. Now we'll just do a full build of the document so you can see all the styling and everything added to those templates. Got a front and back cover, an introduction. Now we'll do a OK Save Projects and Build Documents, and this will kick off the full build. All right, now the full build is done. We're going to open up both the document and the invoice. Now the invoice is typically generated by default as a separate document because it's not usually used within the full proposal. You might just be pulling it out later after you've submitted the proposal and it's been approved, but at least it's ready and everything matches what was put into the proposal. Alrighty, so here's our full document with the front. We're using one of our vending design themes for illustration here. We've got the introduction, and now you can see the cost summary has the extra elements added to it. And also the invoice, you noticed before in the preview, it didn't have the invoice graphic logo header here, didn't have the sidebar, didn't have the footers. So now all that is applied during assembly. All right, and that all looks pretty good. So really that's how you create output where you want control using custom word tables versus having the wizard do the output. And you have options there as well for the output. Use custom word tables when you really want more control over the output than what the wizard defaults can do. I'm just going to pop back into the preferences real quick. We're going to go back to that list of custom templates that are in the My Templates folder. I'm just going to open up those and show you what they look like for other databases. So I'll show everything. So let's go look at a budget example. So this is for a template that's not a cost summary page. This is for a budget. So you can see a custom template here all laid out for a 3-year budget. Now if you had added the budget template to your project, you would have had categories for adding income sources, assets, expenses, and putting in all those line items. And then when your document gets built, this custom table gets used for a schedule. Now if you'd use the schedule chapter, this is a custom template that is set up by default for using schedules. Now this one has days to complete as one of the summaries. So what if you needed something like, instead of days, weeks, months, years to complete, and some of these schedule databases already have those extra global fields defined, and you could just change this from, say, PSComp days to PSComp weeks, months, and so on. Or add your own custom calculations if you need something that's not in the stock database. So that is the bulk of what you need to know about creating custom word tables for your line item databases. And this works for every database, whether it's completely created by yourself, custom, any of our stock ones, it doesn't matter. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And click subscribe to keep up on the latest proposal writing tips with Proposal Kit.